Most people remember Andrea Yates as the mother who drowned her 5 children. But there's one detail about this case that often gets forgotten. Before any of that happened, Andrea Yates was a registered nurse. She worked at one of the largest cancer hospitals in the United States. She had medical training, which raises a difficult question. How does someone with that background end up ignoring the very medical warnings that might have prevented the tragedy? Today, I want to look at that overlooked part of the story.
And before we finish today, stay with me until the end, because I want to share something personal about why I'm doing this kind of analysis in the first place.
Hi, everyone. This is Stina Raven. Welcome to my channel. Today, I'm going to try something a little bit different. In the past, I tended to script my videos pretty tightly. This was mostly because I'm a nonlinear thinker, and I didn't want to go off on tangents that would drive you guys crazy. But today, I'm going to experiment with something new. I'm going to work mostly from bullet points instead of a full script. So if this feels a little more conversational, that would be why. And the topic I want to explore is something many people forget about the Andrea Yates case, including myself. Until I researched this case, I did not remember that Andrea Yates was a registered nurse. And that could be because the news at the time didn't emphasize that, but I don't remember that at all. And I don't think a lot of other people do either. But the fact that Andrea was a registered nurse raises some important questions. Andrea Yates graduated from nursing school in Houston, Texas. She became a registered nurse in 1986. After graduating, she worked at MD Anderson Cancer Center. MD Anderson is one of the largest and most respected and prestigious cancer hospitals in the world. It is a major medical center known for treating complex cancer cases. Working there meant functioning in a high-acuity hospital environment. Oncology nurses like Andrea care for patients undergoing chemotherapy and serious illness. Their training includes monitoring complex medical conditions, administering powerful medications and knowing what those medications do, and recognizing medical emergencies, to name a few. All registered nurses also receive general psychiatric education during nursing school. This includes recognizing symptoms like severe depression, psychosis, suicidal ideation, and extreme behavioral changes, again, to name just a few. So Andrea Yates was not medically unfamiliar with psychiatric illnesses at all. She worked as a nurse for about 3 years before meeting Rusty Yates. Andrea met Rusty in 1989 at their apartment complex in Houston. Rusty had recently graduated from Auburn University, and while he was in college, I believe it was the freshman year of college, he had encountered the teachings of a street preacher named Michael Warnecki. Warnecki promoted a very strict interpretation of Christianity. His teachings emphasized ideas such as the sinful nature of humanity, the moral corruption of the modern world, the danger of worldly influences. He also warned followers about outside authorities. This included skepticism toward government institutions, secular education, psychological and psychiatric, and even medical authority, which is very important to this case with Andrea, I believe. According to accounts later discussed in court, Andrea and Rusty began listening to Warnecki's teachings. Over time, those ideas appear to have influenced the family to a great extent, actually. Andrea eventually stopped working as a nurse after she gave birth to their first child. She became a stay-at-home mother, and by all accounts, she was a devoted, loving, good mother. In 1999, Andrea Yates experienced a severe mental health crisis. She was hospitalized after a suicide attempt. Doctors diagnosed her with severe postpartum psychosis. Doctors treat postpartum psychosis as a psychiatric emergency. Treatment often includes hospitalization, antipsychotic medications, and psychiatric supervision. Andrea Yates did receive both psychiatric treatment and medication, and I believe she was taking several medications to control the psychosis. Andrea's doctors also warned the family about future risks. Specifically, they cautioned both Andrea and Rusty that additional pregnancies could trigger further psychiatric episodes. In other words, psychosis. A woman suffering from postpartum psychosis is at high risk of either ending her own life or ending her children's lives. This is why doctors sometimes warn families not to have additional children after severe postpartum psychiatric illness. And this is where the timeline becomes difficult to understand for me and probably for everybody else. To reiterate, Andrea Yates had medical training as a nurse, personal experience with psychiatric hospitalization, direct medical warnings from physicians. Yet another pregnancy did occur. Around this time, reports indicate that psychiatric medications were discontinued, and ongoing psychiatric treatment was also interrupted, which is bizarre considering Andrea's training as a nurse and what she had been through with her psychosis prior to this, with her last pregnancy. When we step back and look at the full picture, several forces intersect in the Andrea Yates case. A woman with medical training, severe postpartum psychiatric illness, medical warnings about future risk should she have another baby, and a belief system that questioned outside authority. When those forces collide, the results can become tragically complicated, as indeed they did with Andrea and Rusty. Cases like this continue to raise difficult questions, not just about responsibility, but about how belief, illness, and authority can interact in ways that are very hard to untangle. And understanding that intersection may be one of the only ways to truly understand what happened. Hi guys, it's me again. I had filmed the video you just watched last night, and then this morning as I was doing some other things and working on this video, it occurred to me that there were still some things that I wanted to reiterate that I hadn't really, I think, made clear in the video, but also other things that I wanted to say to you guys today. So let's begin. I wanted to make clear that one thing about the case of Andrea Yates that still stands out to me is this. She had been a registered nurse before any of this happened. She worked in a major medical center, like major, which means she actually had medical training. So when people ask how something like this could happen, I don't think the answer is that she suddenly forgot everything she knew. The deeper question is what happens when someone becomes involved in a belief system that tells them outside authorities cannot be trusted. Because the teachings of people like Michael Warrenecki emphasize exactly that. And when that kind of ideology takes hold, sometimes belief can start overriding expertise. And that's part of what interests me about these cases. Not just what happened, but the deeper patterns underneath. And talking about patterns, I also want to be transparent with you guys. I work full-time in an inbound call center as a consultative sales rep. I'm 65, by the way. I work full-time as a consultative sales rep. On the nights and the weekends, I work at growing my Mystics Toolbox website and on growing this channel. So I don't really take any time off. And sometimes it feels like I'm working 3 full-time jobs. For the longest time, I didn't feel like I was making any traction at all. It was frustrating. I wanted to get this message out about my unique brand of analysis and pattern recognition. And I was honestly feeling like I was just spinning my wheels, and why don't I just give it up? Because there's just too much. But I looked at my channel this morning, the stats, and saw that I have 580 subs right now, as of today. Most of those, I only started really working on my channel in the middle of August. So we're talking, about 6 months. So first of all, I just wanted to say to you guys, if you find this kind of analysis interesting, the best way you can help is by liking the video, subscribing to my channel, sharing it, and keeping the discussion respectful in the comments. Particularly make comments, have dialogue with other commenters as well, as long as it's respectful. It really helps my channel grow and reach more people. And I just want to tell you, thank you so much for your support, and I appreciate you guys being here. See you soon.